What if I told you that modern chemotherapy, the treatment that has saved millions, traces back to one quiet lab? It's a young black woman in a microscope. Her name was Cooke Wright. They called her the Mother of Chemotherapy. But behind that title is a story of resistance, risk, and relentless compassion. She was born into Harlem's heartbeat, where jazz spilled from club doors and Renaissance thinkers debated in crowded apartments. Her father, Dr. Louis Tompkins Wright, was among the first African-American graduates of Harvard Medical School. He was a surgeon who defied segregation and treated patients others wouldn't. Her mother, Corinne, was grace and resilience embodied. For Jane, medicine wasn't an ambition, it was destiny. She grew up seeing her father wield medicine not just against disease, but against injustice itself. That was the air she breathed. By the 1940s, Jane stood among the rare few, a black woman in medicine. In the cancer wards of Bellevue Hospital, she looked into the eyes of patients with no real options. Cancer was a death sentence. Chemotherapy, a fantasy. But Jane saw a possibility in the impossible. Hope, she believed, is the medicine every patient deserves. Jane began experimenting with compounds most people feared: nitrogen mustard derivatives. These were born from chemical warfare poisons designed to kill. Could such weapons be transformed into healing tools? She thought differently. She dared to imagine. With her father, she pioneered a radical approach. Instead of relying solely on animal tests, Jane developed techniques to grow cancer cells taken directly from patients. She tested drugs on these living human cells outside the body, tailoring treatment to the individual. It was the seed of personalized medicine, decades before the term even existed. Picture the courage that demanded. No advanced computers, no genetic sequencing. Just a microscope, intuition, and persistence. And because of that persistence, today's cancer patients hear words like targeted therapy. They owe that possibility to Jane's vision. But Jane was not fighting cancer alone. She was also fighting disbelief. In 1951, she was appointed Director of Chemotherapy Research at Harlem Hospital. She was only 33 years old. For some colleagues, that alone was reason enough to doubt her. For others, her gender and race were disqualifiers in their eyes. Imagine walking into rooms where your presence itself is questioned. Imagine presenting data only to be dismissed, not because of what the numbers said, but because of who you were. Jane endured it all. She let the science speak louder than bias. Within years, her team's studies were being cited across the nation. She demonstrated that methotrexate, once just a compound on a shelf, could shrink solid tumors. This single drug became a cornerstone of cancer treatment. In conferences filled with men in dark suits, she often stood as the only woman, the only black physician. She learned to meet silence with survival curves, skepticism with results. Issue 1. Her story reminds us, when you enter a room where you don't belong, leadership is not about being welcomed. It's about proving the room is richer because you are there. The true cure, she once said, is not only for the body, but for the system itself. Jane's influence did not end in the lab. She believed medicine could not stop at the hospital door. In 1964, she co-founded the American Society of Clinical Oncology, SCO. Today, it is the largest professional organization for cancer doctors in the world. She later became its first woman president. But even that wasn't enough for her. She traveled to Africa, to Asia, to the Middle East, helping hospitals in Kenya, in Turkey, in Ghana, established their first cancer programs. She trained physicians, shared techniques, and carried her conviction that cancer was not just a Western disease, it was global. She believed access mattered as much as discovery. What good was a cure if it only belonged to the wealthy? For Jane, cancer was not only a biological disease, it was a social one. Inequality itself was her enemy. Her vision resonates even today. We live in an age of dazzling new therapies, but still, who gets them often depends on wealth or geography. Jane warned us decades ago, a cure without access is not a cure at all. Cooke Wright retired in 1987, leaving behind more than 100 published papers and countless lives saved. She passed away in 2013 at the age of 93, but her presence is still here. Every infusion chair, every oncology ward, Every survivor who rings a bell to mark the end of treatment, all of it echoes her work. She turned the poison of war into the hope of healing. She turned exclusion into leadership. She turned science into equity. The future, she said, belongs to those who turn suffering into service. So the next time you hear of chemotherapy saving a life, remember Jane Cooke Wright. Remember that progress does not fall from the sky, it is chosen. Chosen by those who refuse to accept limits. And if her story moved you, stay with us. Because this channel is dedicated to visionaries like Jane, people who teach us that philosophy is not just in books, but in lives lived bravely. Next, we'll explore the story of Sidney Farber, the man often called the father of modern chemotherapy. If Jane showed us the human side of the fight, Farber reveals its institutional rise. Together, their stories complete a revolution. Stay, subscribe, and let's keep diving deep.